Yeah, but
I think we all have much worse things online. So
No. Talk about talk about yourself, Atul.
yeah, speak for yourself, Atul.
Okay, so today we were going to talk about Upasana, right? So that's the second major sadhana. In Vedanta, there are two big sadhanas, which is Karam Yoga, and the second sadhana is Upasana. And actually the Vedas are structured accordingly. So some people say it's Karam Kand, followed by Upasana Kand, followed by Gyan Kand in the Vedas. And some say it's only Karam and Upasana. So what they do is some people club the Upasana Kand with the Karam Kand, and some people club Upasana Kand with Gyan Kand. So either way is fine. And just to give you an example of this, the biggest Upanishad is called Chandogya Upanishad. Actually, Chandogya Upanishad. And it has 8 chapters. The first 5 chapters of that Upanishad is only Upasanas. Okay. And the last 3 chapters are about Gyan. And usme se bhi one chapter is basically Upasana only, it's like mixture. So Upasana is considered, or used to be considered, as a very major part of learning, of this journey. And in fact, so much so that they said that while, and this you'll see this in the Gita, in chapter 8, which is why we started about this, that while Gyan gives moksha, which means you get freedom here and now, Upasana and Karam Kand give you a good afterlife. So if you're just a Karam yogi, you've just done Karams, good Karams, then you will go to Swarg. If you've done Upasana, specifically Ishwar Upasana or Brahma Upasana, then you will go to Brahma Loka. Brahma Loka is supposed to be the highest form of the best lok, where you live for a long time, you never get old. Whatever you want, you can get. You can conceptualize, materialize. It materializes in front of you. You want something, by the power of your thought, it'll appear. Things like that happen in Brahmalok. And that you get from Brahma Upasana. So that is the power of Upasana. It's like supposedly the most meritorious thing just before Gyan. And in fact, people who go to Brahmalok through rigorous Upasana, the high end of that, then they get taught in Brahmalok by Brahmaji. He teaches them Vedant, and then they get mukti there. And that's called Krama Mukti. Krama means stepwise. So you don't get mukti here, but you get mukti in Brahmalok. So kind of the best of both worlds. You want to have a good life, and then after that, you want to have mukti. So anyway, that's just to kind of lay out traditionally speaking, the importance of Upasana. So, I was thinking the best way to understand all these Karam Yoga and Upasana and all is to think about what is the end goal. What is it that Vedanta is trying to do? And, so what Vedanta is trying to do is to give you knowledge about yourself, the subject, me, the subject which cannot be objectified, which cannot be known by any other means. So the knowledge of other things we get through our experience. We see things, we think about things, that's all experience. We get that knowledge through I, as Dheeraj, will experience something else or know about something else, and that's how I get knowledge. But I can't get that knowledge about me through that means of experience, through that means of using my mind and using my sense organs. So the way to get that knowledge is a different one, which is basically there's something called a Akhand Akara Vritti or Vedanta statement, like Tattvamasi. You're introduced to this statement, which is a crazy statement. It's like a statement you would never think about. It says you are Brahman. First, they describe what Brahman is. Brahman is all pervading, blah blah blah, Advait, and then they say you are the Brahman, and that's something it's not like never thought about, and you realize that the effect that has, when properly understood, is that it doesn't have the effect of knowing something else which was unknown. It has the effect of recognizing something which is already you, which is already known. You just never paid attention to it. So that's the way you, Vedanta says, you will know yourself. Now, this is theory. This is the idea. This is the vision. This is like what they sell us, right? This is the promise. But actually, it doesn't happen like that. And a lot of things come in our way for why it doesn't happen like that. Now, with some people, it does happen. And those people are called Uttam Adhikaris, meaning they are ready. They are like a dry wood. You know, California forest hote hain na jo, they have been baked in the sun. And they are like one little spark and the forest suddenly explodes into forest fire. So that's an Uttam Adhikari, but we are not Uttam Adhikaris. We got a lot of moisture. So when people try to burn, we don't catch fire. You know, people are trying and we are not. थोड़ी देर के लिए आग लगती है फिर बुझ जाती है. So we are not that. So the question is, what is it in ourselves, or what is the ideal thing? Like, why are we not catching fire? And all these sadhanas are done to dry us up, remove the moisture so that we can catch fire. So my question to you now, because you are now experienced firefighters or whatever, what is it you think that comes in our way from exploding and catching fire when we hear Tattvamasi? Why don't we get it? You can talk about your own, experience or your own feeling or whatever. Let's bring it out. What's required which is not there, or unless of course all of you got it, in which case this question is moot. Which is fine.
I think ignorance plays a very big part in catching fire. No? Unless that ignorance is removed, unless you go on that path and start thinking about yourself, till then there will be no fire. And if you are too much involved into all your sensory pleasures, that viragya should be there, that questioning should be there,
Okay.
that thought process should be there, and removal of ignorance should be there to get the spark going.
I mean, removal of ignorance is the aim, right? That is what we want to get. But yeah, you're right. So one thing which comes in our way is too many distractions, right? Too much lack of vairagya. Our mind is too occupied with too many other things which for the moment we deem are more important. Like, ये तो ठीक है चलता रहेगा वेदांत. But we तो, like Sanya has something and Mukta needs to attend to that, and whatever. Like I have to give breakfast to mummy, like things, whatever it is. But these are small issues.
The priorities.
The priorities, yeah, other priorities.
I think for me, it's attachments. Attachments are very strong.
But what is attachment?
First of all, the attachment to the body, we whatever we might say, we may understand, but still when we say I, we think of ourselves like this only, this person. Yeah. We don't think of I as what we learn here in Vedanta. वो इतना समझने के बाद भी we know it, but still whenever we say I, it is this I.
Yeah. Which is
that
also
conditioning.
Okay, actually, that I, you'll always be that I. That is not a thing, but somehow you're saying to even consider that the real me is something else and not this body is too much. It's too much too
we
fast.
are so conditioned to think of ourselves as this body and mind.
Right.
कि वो इतनी आसानी से वो चीज, it's not जैसे वही बात है कि जैसे when you say that, when I say about me or myself or I think of myself as this body and mind only, and I'm talking like that only.
Right.
It's natural.
Yeah.
But that thing that I am Brahman, that doesn't come naturally.
Right, right.
Yeah, for me, I think the answer to ignorance is okay, now we have this knowledge, right? And I think I at least understand the knowledge. Where I struggle most is the application of the knowledge on a day-to-day basis. It's there is the antakarna shuddhi, right? The stuff that we learned about removing the clutter, right? Well, coping with that is challenging, right? Because we are just not used to, you need to really apply what you've learned to remove the clutter out, right? And so there needs to be some discernment, right? There needs to be some viveka to understand what is right from what's wrong, right? Same thing about selfless action, right? Is again the discernment upfront about, no, this is not dharma is not telling me to do this. I need to tune my karmas to the dharmas, right? So those processes are not natural, right? So and so hence, if some challenge comes in, you have to kind of apply apply on the fly.
Okay.
You'll understand that because you're a engineer, right? So just getting into the scheme of things, it's just challenging.
Okay. Any other thoughts? I mean, basically, what you're saying is that we, the Vedanta hasn't hit us the way it needs to hit us. And when it hits us, then all of these little things that we're talking about are our issues and problems and this and that. And, all that is sort of, it disappears. It really is meaningless, in the sense that, when the flood comes, then all these little obstacles or little bags of sand that we've built on the on the embankment, they're like, they may as well not be there. It's like
But I don't, is it a binary thing that it's hit us or not? Because I think that we've all been impacted. I think that, speaking for myself, it has changed my life and attitude and well-being, sense of well-being.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. I mean, it's not like there isn't growth, right? I'm just looking at so I have some good days, make some good decisions and feel happy about doing the right thing. But then there are other days when you are in a reactive mode and you're doing what you used to do before, right? So you have to kind of reflect on that and see what you could have done, right? It's just not easy and natural that you always act like based on the knowledge that you have.
See, the important thing is not whether you're acting based on the knowledge that you have. The important thing is whether you have the knowledge. If you have the knowledge strong enough, you will act on the knowledge that you have. So the fact that we are, everything that we are talking about, we are bringing in willpower, right? We are saying, I can't do that. Get drawn by this. It almost seems like I wish I had the willpower to do this. To apply it, this knowledge has to be applied to my life. So that means we're doing the right thing. Willpower means sadhana. We're talking about sadhana. Everybody has their own sadhana. Kiki's talking about, growth. I'm better than before. That's a result of sadhana. Sadhana is what makes you better than before. Knowledge is not asking you to become better than before. Just so you know. It's not even saying that there is a change. It's not. Knowledge is saying you are this. That's all it's saying. Doesn't matter whether you are worse or better or whatever. You're Brahman. You were Brahman when you were completely selfish, useless guy, running after riches. And you're Brahman when you are this sadhu, who has this total control over mind. Either way, you're Brahman. That's what knowledge is telling you. It's your mind which is saying, I need to become a sadhu. And it's the sadhana that you're doing which is going to take you to sadhu. So there's a difference between the two. But anyway, the point I was trying to make through all this, or what I was trying to say was the way that Vedanta categorizes issues which come in our way, of Gyan, is one big bucket is these things that we just talked about, which is all these other desires, which means all these other priorities. There's nothing wrong in having desires. That's totally fine. But if those desires distract you from doing what you, first of all, you have to think that my goal is to know myself. If that is the case, and then you're not able to know yourself because you got so many other things which are distracting you, then it's a problem. I mean, like for Atul, it's not a problem, right? Because Atul doesn't have that single-minded thing, okay, I have to know myself. Atul just says, oh, I have to learn about Vedanta. It's a buffet line. And it's okay, for 1 hour I will listen to it, and I have my other desires, that's fine. So I'm not talking about that.
Isn't it the opposite though?
Why?
Because I don't say that I have to learn about Vedanta. I say that I have to learn about myself, whichever way it comes.
They're both the same thing. I'm making them synonymous. Vedanta is only about learning about yourself. That's what Vedanta is. So maybe I used words which were
No, I mean, forget the words part, but I'm saying that in some ways, I mean, if your point is that it doesn't bother me, that part is correct. But the reason it doesn't bother me is that at the end of the day, if I feel I didn't learn anything about Vedanta, that doesn't bother me. Why? Because if I learned something, if I made progress, if I fed myself in the buffet line, I'm fine with that, because that's why I'm here. So in other words, my goal is not to learn about Vedanta. I'm using Vedanta as a tool.
I think the difference, is what you call yourself and what we are calling ourselves. That's the difference. So you think you're learning about yourself. But what you're learning about, from my perspective and from this group's perspective, what you're learning about is your mind, is your thoughts, is your preferences, is your, I like this, I don't like this, I'm like this, I behave like this. You're learning about all that. You're learning about some aspects of your personality. What you're not learning about is what I am referring to as yourself. So if that was your goal, to learn about that self, then you would realize, oh, how do I know that? How do I learn that? And then you look to Vedanta as a possible means of getting there, because Vedanta offers you a path to that. So that's
let me phrase it differently. Because sometimes, not very often, sometimes, and I think it has happened with all of us, is sometimes we would make a comment and you would say, but that's not Vedanta. I mean, in different contexts, you say, but that's not what Vedanta says. Now, for people who are here to learn Vedanta, they'll say, oh, okay, I'll take out my eraser and erase that, because now I know what is and what is not Vedanta. So when you say that, when I hear that, I sort of say, okay, I mean, in other words, I don't have to take out the eraser, because I'm not here to sort of, my notebook doesn't say Vedanta notes, it says life notes. So even if it is not Vedanta, but if I learn something, I mean, it's a win.
I think that's true for all of us.
Okay, yeah.
Right? I don't think anybody here is wanting to learn Vedanta because they want to give an exam and answer questions on Vedanta. I'm
not taking any exam. I'm still an audit student.
Yeah, nobody else is either. We're not studying Vedanta as a part of our graduate course. And we have to clear an exam on Vedanta. Okay, this is Vedanta, this is Advaita Vedanta, this is this. That's not the idea. We're just using the word Vedanta because it's convenient. We are learning about ourselves. The difference is that what is it that you call that is yourself? Right? We all, throughout our life, we have learned about ourselves. We are most interested in ourselves. But if you're talking about learning about something which cannot be known, by observation or by any other means, then that is the self we're talking about. We're talking about the ultimate self. That's the difference. But so the way I was trying to say was that the first category of sort of obstacles is this other priorities. But then there are a couple other categories of obstacles. One of them is the inability to concentrate or pay attention for an extended period of time. And maybe that's linked to the first one because we get distracted. And even if we are not having any huge attachments everywhere else, but we still can, find we get distracted. And another one is the inability to conceptualize, because this is a big one, because what we are trying to learn is something that we can't see in front of us. We will constantly conceptually make mistakes. And just right now, remember, we talked about it. It's so hard to get a handle on Brahman because, like, for example, all the time we've talking about growth. I'm becoming better. I have to apply willpower, right? That has nothing to do with Brahman. But Brahman is not there, which you can see, so you know exactly what it is and what it is not. The only handle you have on Brahman is through your own mind. And that was also a negative handle. It's a handle of anything you get a handle on is not Brahman. That's what the handle is telling you. It's not a positive thing that you can conceptualize and say, okay, this is Brahman. The only indication you have is whatever it is that you conceptualize, whatever it is not Brahman. So this requires, I wouldn't say it requires huge intelligence, but it requires the ability to understand that there are things very much so which may not be able to be seen, but they are there. Now, I want to also say that this was probably an issue, a bigger issue in some places and lesser of an issue in other places. For example, for us, this is not a huge issue because we are very comfortable. All our teaching and learning is around concepts and ideas, which are not always. I mean, for example, if somebody asks you, what is some material made of? What is my hand made of? You'll say cells. You've never seen a cell. Maybe we've seen a cell with a microscope, so okay, not a cell. But what is this cup made of? It's made of molecules. Molecules also you may have seen. But what are molecules made of? They're made of atoms, and atoms are made of quarks. And we are talking about stuff we've never seen. When we go to atoms, nobody has ever seen an atom. We've seen, how certain particles, when streamed into a material, get deflected in different ways. So we assume that there must be something of this shape because of the pattern of deflections. But nobody has ever seen an atom. But I think we are comfortable enough to say, okay, this is made of atoms. We may not have a very good conception of what atoms is, but we say it's made of atoms. So when you think of atoms, what do? You superimpose a form on the reality, and that's how you know something. So, for example, when we were little children, or not little children, but we were in school, an atom was a nucleus circle and bigger circles around it, around which the electron, which is another small circle, is moving. That's a form that we have taken in our mind. We've superimposed it on a reality called atom, and we've said that's what an atom is. That is knowledge. Now, we've gone further and we've said, no, that as we grew older and more mature, we realized that model is not going to work. So we've changed our model. We're saying at this point that atom is a nucleus, very small nucleus in the middle, and then there are probability waves of electrons around it. That means it could be here, it could be there. Again, a conceptualization. What I'm trying to say is that knowledge is the superimposition of an idea or a concept on something physical. And if it's close enough to meeting our needs, we're good with it. And that is conceptual ability that we are used to. We may not even realize we are doing it, but we are used to doing it because we're doing it all the time in this modern world. For example, in the olden times, if you see any of these movies of the Vikings or some of these, Aborigines or any older tribes which used to live in the old days, for them, everything in nature was living. They said, when it's raining, it's God mercy. There's a God just throwing rains. When there is an eclipse, it's God's anger. So, if you see the Vikings and all, they are in constant relationship and constant touch with their God, who's telling them fight or do this, don't fight. For them, it's very real that after death, they are going to a place called Valhalla if they get killed in the battlefield. It's very, very real. All this is Upasana. I mean, it's a roundabout way of telling you. This is Upasana. In a very broad way, this is Upasana. When we say that an atom is this, which we've never seen, we're taking an idea which we've never seen, we're superimposing it on a concrete form. Atom is actually, at the end of the day, an atom is just an idea. But we are superimposing it on a concrete form in order to gain a better understanding of it, in order to expand our own mind. We are doing it. That's called Upasana. So this is a modern day version of Upasana. The traditional Upasana is, I'll give you some examples of Upasana, okay? So one example is to conceive of Ishwar. It's all linked to Ishwar. As this universe. This is the Virat Roop of Ishwar. And you say that the earth is the feet of Ishwar. The trees are the legs of Ishwar. The heavens are the head of Ishwar, the celestial things, right? So you make all these, you do all these sort of superimpositions. And this is Ishwar outside. Then you say Ishwar inside. Jyoti is Ishwar. So the light in my eyes is Ishwar. The light in the sun is also Ishwar. And the light in the sun is the same as the light in my eyes. That's the Upasana. So these are all transitional things we do in order, if you need to do, in order to get to a better or a different idea. It's transitional stuff. So this is from a Upasana, seen from a conceptualization ability. In Sanskrit, it's called E tasmin tat buddhi. E tasmin means in this. That's what E tasmin means. Tat means that. So a visualization, which is buddhi, of that in this. So a visualization of an atom in this form. A visualization of Ishwar in myself. Or visualization of Ishwar in the universe. So that's etasmin tat buddhi. So this is one part, like I said, Upasanas do. The other part of Upasana is what is called dhyana. Dhyan. That's the other thing, another dimension of looking at Upasana. And dhyana is basically a mental activity. So जैसे हम काम कर रहे हैं, both बात कर रहा हूं मैं. If I'm talking, it's a mental activity because first, before I could say anything, my mind conceived of the words. That's where it all begins, right? Nothing starts without the mind or, some subtle instrument conceiving of something. If I have to go somewhere, there's a will first to go. Then that gets translated into action. So if it's to talk, it'll get translated into speech. If it's to walk, it'll get translated into a movement of my legs. But an action which starts in the mind, but then gets translated into other parts of my body for that to happen, is not a mansik action. It's called it's a karma. But sometimes you can have an action which remains in the mind only. For example, when I superimpose Ishwar on the whole universe, I'm not saying anything and I'm not moving anywhere. It remains in the mind. It's a mental action. It is still an action. It's an action because something is being done. Some conceptualization is being done. There is a me which is conceptualizing. There is a doer or a thinker who is thinking. So that's a mental action. So that's one part of it. But when I'm worrying, if I worry about something, that's also a mental action. That's not upasana. Okay. In worry also, we are superimposing an unknown thing. We are superimposing a problematic, something bad on something which is formless. That's what worry is. That thing has not even happened. God knows that it'll happen or not. But I worry because I've already thought about it and superimposed it on my current situation. An uncertain, unpleasant future has been superimposed by me on my today. That's worry. Today is fine. But I superimposed thing. That's worry. No, that is not upasana. Because that is not something that you have done using your will. It's an action, but it's not really an action which you've taken willingly. You don't want to do it, but it happens. So there's an element of will because upasana is a sadhana. So if you willfully stop worrying, that is upasana, you could say, because something is happening and you're willfully stopping that from happening. It's again a mental activity, but it's upasana. Now, there's another thing which Vedanta or Vedas say about upasana is it's not just any activity. It has to be about a chosen vishaya. And the vishaya, which is this topic, is usually Saguna Brahma or Ishwar. So they want us to think about Ishwar because this is leading us to Vedanta, right? So they want us to think about Saguna Brahman, which is everywhere, all of that. And then from there, you go to Nirgun Brahman. So any activity or any thought which is related to Saguna Brahma Vishya, and it's a manasik activity, is upasana. But then it also says anything which is not related to Brahman, if it's coming to your mind, dispel it. So that you are focusing only on this area of Saguna Brahman. So, not thinking about something which is Saguna Brahman, thinking about Saguna Brahman, that mental activity in that form is upasana. So in Sanskrit, Vijatiya Rahita. Jati means category. So Vijatiya Rahita, which is without. Rahita means without. Rahit. You want to act or Ricola?
Recording.
Yeah. Just take the whole thing.
No, sorry.
No, it's okay. तेरी class हो नहीं रही?
They are on a breakup from right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye. Sorry. So Vijatiya Rahita, that means it is no, is without, that is an important activity. Mukta, you remember you and I talked about it. Because हमको सोचते हैं कि some other thoughts are coming to us, so that means we are failing in meditation. It's not, no. It says Vijatiya Rahita. Those thoughts are supposed to come. You physically remove them, or mentally remove them. So it's part of the definition of meditation. The act of coming back from those thoughts is part of the definition of meditation. So Vijatiya Rahita, Sajatiya Pravaha. That means the flow. Pravaha means flow. So Sajatiya Pravaha means the flow of thoughts of that category, which is Brahman. Saguna Brahma Rupa. Manasik Vyapara or Manasik Karma is the definition of Upasana from the standpoint of Dhyana. So Vijatiya Rahita means, like I said, being able to come back from other thoughts. Sajatiya Pravaha means staying in the flow. It's not like you thought for 2 minutes or 2 seconds or 5 seconds and then you said, okay, meditation. No, for staying in the flow for a considerable period of time. That means thinking about, and Brahman, Saguna Brahma Rupa. So you're thinking of Saguna Brahma. That means you're superimposing the Nirgun Brahman on something else. You're thinking of Brahman as Ishwar, as this world, as something.
Sorry, Nitu, are you superimposing Nirgun Brahman, or are you superimposing the form on Nirgun Brahman?
Okay. It doesn't matter, maybe the better way to say is you're superimposing the form on Nirgun Brahman. That's right, etasmin tat. But you're thinking, the idea is that you're thinking about a form. And that's to make it easy. And by the way, because, last time, Rajiv, you were asking, the definition of Nididhyasana is Nirguna Brahma Manasik Vyapara. Which means now, and that is Nididhyasana, that is different. So you're not putting any form to Brahman. And the only way you can think about it is about yourself. You think about, I am, like, for example, Asangha, Aham Asangha. Asangha means I'm not attached to anything, or Aham Purnam, I'm full, something like that. So two aspects to Upasana. One, Gyan, it's called Gyan, which is knowledge. That means superimposing something which is not tangible into something tangible. And the second is Dhyan, being able to do this for a length of time so that you can learn to concentrate. You're building your mental muscle. You're removing distractions through Karam Yoga. You're trying to get yourself in a position where there are not too many distractions, because you have all these, desires. And then you're building your mental muscle through Upasana. You can imagine if there are people who are just used to, I would say even a lot of, I think about Westerners in rural areas, I'm not trying to categorize, but those who are not used to a spiritual tradition, those who are not used to thinking about religion, not used to thinking about God, not used to thinking about something which cannot be seen. For them, it's very hard to even say there is a Brahman. I have never seen it. You can't see it, but it's there. Trust me. It's like they can't. It's very hard. For them, this Upasana is very, very important, because it's beginning them on the road to thinking about something and then seeing it as something else, and then that way you proceed. For us, less so. But let me give you another example of another Upasana. It's called Panch Agni Upasana. It's very interesting. That's why I'm bringing it up. So it's there in Chandogya. And it describes the journey of the the human being. That means the journey of us after death. And it says that you think about this journey. So there are 5 Agnis. The first Agni is the Agni where you get cremated. In that Agni, the physical body is gone, except a little, very, very small, minute portion of the physical body remains, even after the rest is burned. And along with the subtle body, which doesn't get destroyed by fire, and along with our Jivatma, which is the reflected Atma, in ourselves, this becomes a package and it travels. So this travels and goes to Swargalok. That is the first stop. So Agni means it's being cooked. So this is like, the thing was destroyed. It's a fresh little piece, which is the Saguna Brahman, with one little component of our body, along with Jivatma. This has to be cooked. Like rice is cooked, it has to be cooked into a new human being for the next janam. So that's why it's called Panchagni. It's being cooked in different places. So first cooking happened here itself, where the crap, disused, horrible body was gone away. Oh, nikal diya humne. It's been cleaned up. all the old Jada body. Then it goes to Swargalok, where something happens. I mean, I don't remember exactly. I mean, if you read the Upanishad, it will tell you more details. But one step happens, some processing takes place. That's the second Agni. Then from Swargalok, it goes to the clouds, where more processing takes place. From clouds, it comes to the earth, where it becomes part of a plant. Then the plant gets eaten by the father. And from the father, it goes to the mother. That's what conception is. And that's the final Agni, the mother. And that's where it finally develops into a human being, and then it's born again. So this is an Upasana. Now, some people might say it is true, this is how it happens, because it says in the Vedas. But that's not the point. The point is, if you think about this all the time, it's making you comfortable, or bringing you, it's kind of introducing you to this idea of life after, of this whole thing about how everything is not just today, everything is not just this world that you're seeing right now. And Vedanta is going to take you from here. After it tells you what is this Panchagni and everything, then it's going to tell you that the essence of all that is Brahman. All of that is Mithya. So it's a process. We may not understand, or for us, this process may be silly because we may not be the target audience for this, all aspects of this process. It's an old process, thousands of years old. But what I want to do is to make sure we understand the thinking behind it, the spirit of the process. What is it trying to do? What is the idea of Upasana? Why is it even there? But nobody's ever taught us about it, right? You never heard about all these things before. We've done so much of spirituality, we listen to Swami Sarvapriyananda all the time and everybody else, but nobody talks about this. And we don't talk about it because it's not really applicable to us today. But it was very applicable and very important, a few thousand years ago. And the ideas are still applicable. We still need to develop the muscle, those twofold. One, muscle, which is the mind, which is able to conceive of things which are not in front of it. And the second muscle is the mind, which is able to concentrate for a length of time on a particular topic. Because you need both of these for proper self-inquiry. And the other thing which Karam Yoga was giving you was a mind which is relatively free of clutter. Because you need that too. And that comes from Karam Yoga, a relatively clutter-free mind. And the beauty of Karam Yoga is it's not making you clutter-free by a force of will. It's making you clutter-free by knowledge, because it's telling you that this clutter is actually not helping, it's hurting. You want to be clutter-free. You are happy being clutter-free. That's how it's making you clutter-free. Even the process of becoming clutter-free is giving you pleasure, is something that you want to do. You feel good. And the same thing with Upasana. This whole process of the whole process of Vedanta is a happy process. It's meant to be a happy process. You know, and all these sadhus and all, they're very happy when they talk about, oh, look at this, God has been conceived like this. And, you know, they're like, they've got a bhakti sense in them and, you know, all of that. Anyway, so that's my my lecture on lecture on Upasana.
Seems a little bit confusing to me, if I can ask.
Yeah.
That Upasana, how do you know what is, I mean, in the first place, is it helpful for you, for us right now? Then it seems that sometimes it can add more clutter to our brain instead of removing it. And then it seems that it can actually be a little dangerous sometimes if you get caught up in the superimposition of the form. Like if your focus is not on the spirit of Upasana, then it seems like one can get lost just in the Upasana without. So I'm thinking of Beji and Benji, who always prayed their whole life. But that didn't, like, you know, when you said that it is meant to lead you to the formless from the form, that's sort of what I'm understanding. But that's not how it generally seems to work. It keeps you limited in the form.
Yeah, but you understand that, right? You understand that there's a danger. You're not going to let that happen to you. So what's the problem?
No, I mean, yeah, I don't just, yeah.
It's a comment, understood. And that's why all of this is a danger with all of this theory, all of this Vedanta. You know, if it becomes about Vedanta, like Atul was saying earlier, if it becomes about understanding and knowing Vedanta, and I want to know all the details about Vedanta is saying, then you get caught in Vedanta.
Yeah.
There's a technical term for it. It's called Vedanta Sara. You know, that's another, Vedanta becomes part of the clutter.
But so
That's
my
how it
first
will go.
question to you was, is it relevant and applicable for you, for us?
But that's for you to determine again. That's where your own discrimination will come in. Like,
Okay.
you know, you have to figure out, for me, what's coming in my way.
Yeah.
And is this something that will help me at this point? Maybe it's not relevant right now. Maybe down the line it will become relevant.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
makes sense.
Right? It's just a tool. It's available in your toolkit. Just wanted to introduce you to the tool.
So, Dheeraj, I was just thinking that a question came up, right? So I remember learning your own self, and we went through the process of, superimposition, dreamless sleep, and dream sleep, and then the waking state, right? Those are also examples of superimposition over Brahman, right? How does that process, is that like a separate process, or how does it
No, it's
correlate
all,
with
I
the
mean, in my opinion,
superimposition?
all that is Upasana.
Yeah, see, that's what I
Yeah,
wanted to know.
absolutely.
Yeah,
See, all knowledge.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if you think about it broadly enough, it's all Upasana. Anything, so, you know, it depends on how you're going to class. Some people will say no, because it's only Brahma, you know, like Upasana is supposed to be only like this narrow thing where I'm just thinking, sitting in meditation. Again, that's not going, in my opinion, not going with the spirit of the thing. So for you to be able to think like that there is a Brahman, that's a prakriya in Vedanta, mainstream Vedanta knowledge, you know, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasnam, that's a prakriya. But you have the ability to think about it, to say, okay, I can see how Brahman is superimposed in physical form, in dream sleep, in this sleep. That requires certain mental skills. You are an engineer who has studied a lot, who has a developed mind, which has thought about various conceptual problems all their life. You have the ability to think like that. But if someone doesn't have that ability, they'll say, okay, first you do these upasanas. That'll help you reach a place where you can properly understand how Brahman could be superimposed in the waking state and in the dream state and in this state, in this way, and it's the same Brahman. We never had a problem conceptually understanding it. Or we had a problem, we had a little problem, and over time we asked some questions and we thought about it, we were able to get over it. Our problems have been more around, how do I tackle the clutter in my mind? Whether it is attachments or whether it is other priorities or, whatever it is. And that's all, and that's the modern, that seems to be the situation of today. Today is the world where Karam Yoga is very helpful. Karam Yoga is sort of the call of the day because it addresses those things. Upasana is good, but maybe like Mukta did for Dhyan. I want to be able to, and imagine the Dhyan of Vipassana or Mukta, you were sitting for 10 hours. And even in Vipassana, if you notice, the first 3 days, they were saying concentrate on the breath, nothing else.
Yeah.
Because that's a basic capability of the mind to be able to focus on one breath. And then it said, okay, scan your body. If they told you scan your body from day one, you would have felt nothing. You would have no ability because your mind was so scattered. So that's why they did first 3 days was just focus. So it's building a capability in the mind. Now, whether or not you have desires and distractions, you would not have been able to do the body scan without first doing the concentrated 3 days. It has nothing to do with the fact that you have too many desires or you don't have desires. You just don't have the capability. The mind cannot focus. So those 3 days is an upasana. The upasana was you superimposed your attention on some breath, you focused on that breath. When your mind went away from the breath, you brought it back. You did Vijati Rahita, because anything else you brought back. Sajati Prabaha, you were constantly thinking about the breath for an extended period of time. Rupa, it wasn't Brahman, Brahma Vishya, Saguna Brahma Vishya, but it was still the breath Vishya, respiration Vishya, Manasik Vipara. That was an upasana. In fact, actually, what we did from day 4 to 10 was also an upasana, because we scanned our body and we superimposed certain vibration and things, like basically, if you really think about it, all knowledge is an upasana. So what eventually Brahman is, what Vedanta says is get rid of all of this knowledge. Even that Brahman is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, that is also an upasana. It's also superimposing. You're superimposing some thoughts of Satyam, whatever, on Brahman. So that, I'm kind of taking wide liberties with the term, but I'm just trying to tell you that knowledge is upasana. In fact, it's called Gyan in Veds, in the Ved. Vidya, it's called Vidya. So it's called a Panch Agni Vidya. Gyan, that's a definition. So Gyan is more, traditionally referred to as Atma Gyan, and Vidya is knowledge, is upasana. Anyway, that's I'm sure, very sort of a different take, but that's how I see it.
But you see it only when you think of all knowledge as being upasana being knowledge that is true true to the reality of what is being superimposed upon. But if it was a concept that is actually not true to that reality that you're trying to get to, like in that very generic definition, is that also
So then you would say it's
upasana?
adhyasa. So very generally, you'll say it's adhyasa is also superimposition, adhyasa bhashya,
Right,
right?
right.
But that's an error.
Anyonya adhyasa,
It's not done willfully. It just happens. It's when we superimpose existence on objects, it's adhyasa. But all knowledge is inaccurate. That's the other thing I just wanted to say. There is no true knowledge. When you say, I will give back to the atom example. When you say that atom has a nucleus in the middle and an electron moving around, would you call that true knowledge or false knowledge?
false knowledge.
Well, no, because but what is true knowledge now? Are you saying that electron is just a probability wave? That is true knowledge? It's not. It's not. The frontier of knowledge is always moving.
Yeah.
As long as it meets or explains data which we are seeing around us, we call it true knowledge. But at least let's have the ability to understand that it is just superimposition. There is no. We never have a knowledge of reality.
So, Dheeraj, I guess you are implying, but I just wanted to make it black and white, which is, I think what you seem to be saying is all knowledge outside of the knowledge of Brahman is unreal. It's false knowledge.
Yes, and the knowledge of Brahman is not even knowledge in the normal sense.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that all knowledge which is got from the process of I am separate, that object is separate, I will want to know the object, is inaccurate and unreal. And it has to be, because it doesn't include yourself. You're making an artificial division in the first place. You're saying that I am separate, the other thing is separate. That's an artificial divide. You're starting with a false thing. Then however close you go, however much you know, you'll think you'll know more and more because it's explaining the world around you. But that's because you're ignorant of the world around you. Only that you've seen, the data points that you've got, they are being explained and you're saying, oh, I know. But the basic assumption is wrong. Because you're saying the basic assumption is I, as a separate entity, want to know that as a separate entity.
Yeah, duality, right?
Yeah, duality, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But this is like, we're just going into deep philosophy. There's no need to do that. But I was just trying to say that in the context of Upasana.
But knowledge is only possible in duality anyway.
Yeah. So knowledge is not, well, the way this knowledge is, if we are defining this knowledge as me knowing something else, then it's duality. When you say nididhyasana, like Brahman, that is not duality. But anyway, yeah, we are going lost into words now, I think. I really didn't want to go into this like a rabbit hole, but what are any other questions on Upasana? Do you guys understand the purpose of Upasana, the intended purpose of Upasana? You think?
Again, that Antakarna Shuddhi only.
Antakarna Shuddhi is not, Antakarna Shuddhi is Karma Yoga.
Okay.
Antakarna Naishchalya is Upasana.
What is Naishchalya?
Naishchalya means something which is steady, concentration.
Focus on
चलना होता है ना, चलना मतलब घूम रहा है, चल रहा है. न चलना. Think about it like that. It's Naishchalya. जो चल नहीं रहा, steady है. निश्चल क्या? Focus, exactly.
Basically.
Focus, the ability to focus your antakarna, your mind, on something for an extended period of time. That is Upasana. And that's just one part of it. The second part of it is the ability to, but it's not about
Bring it
basically,
back.
it's the ability to focus on something which you are not able to completely see ahead of you. That's the eventual goal, you know, to focus on a concept.
Isn't in simple terms.
I know, I think this has been like a crazy class.
In simple terms, isn't simple meditation or dhyan and the bhakti and the kirtan, bhajan, and all that, isn't puja,
Upasana.
the traditional,
No.
isn't all that upasana?
No, so kirtan is karma because
Okay,
you're talking.
okay.
So if it's puja, where you are, you know, where your yagna is being done, you're lighting a fire and you're chanting mantras, that is karma. Okay?
Okay,
Because you're speaking, it's coming on.
okay.
If it's puja where you're sitting and concentrating on the diya, on the jyot, without saying anything, your lips are not moving, you're just focused, concentrating. That's not typically puja, that's dhyan. That is dhyan, that is meditation,
Okay.
right?
Is that upasana?
That's upasana. See, the reason is why it's upasana is because you're doing something. Even when you're sitting and thinking about a flame, you're actually doing something. Typically, you'd be, you know, they'll say, think about the flame as God or Ishwar. There's a mental activity going on. You're not just totally blank. If you're totally blank, then it's samadhi. That's the end state of the end state of upasana.
And what about the japa thing? Some people have diksha
Yeah,
and
that's so
they
japa
have that
means,
mantra.
yeah, so if you're talking, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you're not
yeah,
supposed, you know, you're not supposed to talk. You're just supposed to think about Ram, Ram, Ram in your mind.
yeah.
That's totally
Yeah.
upasana.
That's upasana.
Yeah.
That's focus, right? So,
It's focus, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of mental activity in japa because you're supposed to think about every bead is like Ram, Ram, Ram. And then in between the two Rams, there is a space. You recognize that space as me, as Brahman. That's all superimposition in a way. It's all upasana.
same thing about breath too, right? I mean, when you breathe
Yeah.
and then you have to stop for
Yes.
5 seconds and then you exhale, that's the same concept.
That's all mental activity.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but you have to find
breathing is
the.
karma, but let's
Yeah.
just.
I thought the pause in between was supposed to be recognizing Brahman, right?
Well, that depends on who your teacher is and what instructions have been given. In for example, the exercise that Mukta and I did in Vipassana, that was not the instruction. But because Buddhism doesn't believe in Brahman and all that, it doesn't want us to think about anything. It just says just be blank.
Yeah, shunya. Yeah.
But okay, to just say simply, if two takeaways, so that this hour is not completely wasted, is one is all of this are sadhanas, all this karam yoga, dhyan yoga, or whatever, upasanas, they're all their preparatory disciplines. They're preparing your mind. Karam yoga prepares your mind by removing obstacles, by removing hurdles like distractions. A person who doesn't do Karam Yoga and who's got so many different priorities and all of that desires going on, for that person, that desire is powerful. It will keep you sit down a little to think about Brahman, you'll end up thinking about your son or about your loved one or about how in the business you have to make money. Because that desire is very powerful. So to remove that is Karam Yoga. Remove this clutter. To add the ability to be able to conceptualize on things which are not present in front of you, and to be able to focus and concentrate on one or some limited number of things for a length of time, that is upasana. Between the two, you basically you get ready, your mind is capable of self-inquiry. The upasanas can be very elaborate or very simple, that by the way, just so you know, desire is also a pravaha and a flow of thought. The difference is in desire, the object of your desire is constantly the flow of thought towards that object of desire. That's what's called a desire. It's not out of your choice. It just is there. So all your thought flow is consumed by your object of desire. And it's not just 1 minute के लिए, it's constant. You'll sit down for घंटे घंटे सोचते रहोगे उसी के बारे में, the thing which is your desire. That is a fantastically focused mind. Unfortunately, it's not focused on what you want it to focus on. That's the problem. But if you could replicate the activity of your mind, which is on desire, you could replicate it on something that you want it to be focused on, that would be perfect. So in Vedanta, desire is defined as a thought pravaha, as a flow of thought on one object. So you want to remove that desire, you want to remove that distraction, because it's not letting you focus your thoughts on what you want it to be focused on. If there are objects of desire, they will consume your thoughts. That's the reason why you want antakarna shuddhi. You want your mind to be able to, you want to be able to direct your thoughts where you want it to be directed. That's antakarna shuddhi. Antakarna naishchalya, the desire mind which has got a lot of desire, has got a lot of antakarna naishchalya. वो तो बिना हिले बिल्कुल एक ही चीज पे लगा रहता है.
But if we really understood that desire is typically, okay, this is what's going to make me happy. But if we really understood that self-knowledge is going to make me happy, then that automatically that will become the desire. So that'll be a good desire.
So the only way to remove a desire is through knowledge. Once you have a desire, that's why Karam Yoga is Buddha Yoga. It's knowledge. If you think, because that flow of thought to the object of desire is a very pleasant feeling. It's like an addiction. Like cigarette peete rehte hain na, once you're smoking, bada maza aata hai. But your mind tells you that this is actually bad for your health. Knowledge can remove the addiction. Of course, that's not a simple thing, because you also need some willpower and some mechanisms and tools. And that's what Karam Yoga is. It's a combination of knowledge and some techniques like Ishwar Arpan, Ishwar Prasad, to get you going, right? Because knowledge sometimes is not enough. But that's the idea. So I'm sorry, I forgot what we were talking about. Yeah, so that's what Karam Yoga is. So yeah, so it's true. Desire is just once you know that that this is just a trap. It's not going to take you anywhere. It's just a trap. You're going to get just caught in this cycle. Then the issue becomes the basic underpinning of the desire is gone, but the habit is still there. Then the issue becomes, how do I, what are some tactical tools I have to sort of remove the desire, or take my mind away from the desire. And it's like therapy, like when you have obsessive disorders and all that, you can, through knowledge, remove the underpinning, the ignorance behind obsessive disorders. There's nothing, but then you also need some techniques to sort of, okay, when you think about something, start thinking of something else. Like Vidur tells me, I was asking him about all these. So he said, we tell people who have obsessive thoughts and compulsive thoughts. First, we tell them how their obsessive thoughts and compulsive thoughts are, the theoretical underpinning, why they're happening. They don't really mean anything. Then you tell them, okay, next time the thought occurs, you start thinking of the garden or go take a walk in the garden. So that's a technique which you are telling a ready mind. A ready mind is able to accept that technique. And okay, use that as a way to break a habit. So Karma Yoga has both. It has the knowledge which tells you that your happiness doesn't come from your desires. And it has the technique to break that habit by saying, okay, you have to do this work, just do this, Bhagwan ko arpan kar do. Ishwar arpan. Wo prasad aa raha hai, think about it as prasad. So that's the little crutch it's giving you. But every time you do it, you feel good. So it reinforces itself and it becomes a cycle. So knowledge is the basis. And then, when you're talking duality, when you're talking of anything else, you have to have knowledge and some help through karmas. But when you're talking about Brahman, there is nothing, it's nothing but knowledge can take you there. Chalo yaar. I have this habit, and I'm really apologizing because I have this habit of, because my mind thinks like this, like in my mind, when I was thinking about Upasana, like all these insights were flashing in my mind. That Upasana is all knowledge. Oh, that's why it's called Vidya. And all knowledge is incorrect knowledge. It's incomplete knowledge. Right? Doesn't mean that those mean anything to you, but I get carried away and I say all that. And sometimes that sort of distracts from the focus of the session. So.
Well, actually, just speaking for myself, I'm actually grateful. So don't apologize because I find it extremely helpful. So don't assume that those are not helpful.
No, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But maybe, if you listen to the recording again, it'll make more, you'll be able to pay more attention. It'll make more sense. Anything else, guys?
Next
for
time.
for me today, I think the focus part was very, very good. I mean, I sort of read about it and I think it's found its place. I think what was very interesting was the superimposition of Brahman, right? The attributeless Brahman, the Brahman with attributes. I think that concept is powerful. Need to think about that.
Yeah, I mean, you need focus. All knowledge is superimposition. Think about it that way.
Mm-hmm.
One way or the other, all knowledge is superimposition. The ability to superimpose is a very important ability. To superimpose at will is a very important ability. The ability to concentrate and focus your mind for a period of time on an object that you desire, or an object that you want to focus on, is a very important ability. Those
superimposition and conceptualization are synonyms then, right?
Yes, they're synonyms. Conceptualization is superimposition.
Yeah, okay.
Right? You conceptualize something, and you start with a rough superimposition, and then in your mind, it's like designing a product.
Yeah.
You're designing something new. So you're first making a rough design, and then slowly in your mind only you're thinking, oh, this will not work like this will work like this. Or you go ahead and check it out and it doesn't work, then you make those changes. So a lot of the design actually happens in the mind. And then you put it down on paper. And that's all conceptualization and superimposition. Everything we think about is a superimposition in one form or the other.
Yeah, that to me is the big thing about that I learned today.
Yeah,
just
and that
clarity
is
on that.
For me, that was like a blazing insight when it struck me, and I don't even, it's like so because that's how I thought, And that's why I said Upasana is so interesting. Because Upasana is Gyan, is Vidya. This is how we live in this world, how we learn in this world. If we do that Upasana backed up by mathematics and rigorous, analysis, we call it great study.
Yeah.
When that Upasana is done by an Adivasi who is not having an analysis at his disposal, but he's thinking, okay, this lightning is is a flash from God or something. Heaven, rain is in one of them. The rain is the urine of God, right? Many things like that, right? It's superstition, but it's a fine line. From a Vedanta perspective, the process is the same. Well, the Vedanta absolutely says you have to have logic. You have to have the ability to screen off crap from what is real.
Yeah.
But in its own way, we are superimposing all the time. Okay, Mukta,
Yeah.
that's okay.
I have to listen to it again.
Yes, yeah. We'll talk also if you want. We can talk also sometime. I'll call you when
Yeah.
Gupta is watching the tulips in Amsterdam.
No, you enjoy your trip.
The whole journey, like I booked the bus which leaves in the morning
You
from
should
our
stop
hotel.
recording.
Right. Okay. It's okay. We're going to Keukenhof, and there's something called a whisper boat. I'm sure Atul will know about it. Atul, you heard of the whisper boat?
No, but my Indian Desi neighbors are also going to Kukunov around the same time.
Oh, yeah, because this is the time when it's open, right? It's only
Yeah,
like a month and a
yeah.
half.
Yeah.
Well, when it's not
October.
open, the tulips are in bloom.
So if you see a very short Punjabi woman married to a mid-sized South Indian,
I'll think of you. I'll
talking
superimpose Atul.